Hello, fellas and ladies. It's time to review the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Years after the first Mario Brothers movie from the world-renowned Illumination, that made $1 billion and caused hair-pulling discourse about film criticism, and now we're back. I initially found the first film completely fine, if not serviceably forgettable, but upon a rewatch a couple days ago, its glaring issues are much more apparent, and the amount of references aren't as forgivable as I remember. And now we have the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and I think even though it's only been not 12 hours since I've seen it, I think the further away I get from this movie, the more I kind of despised this movie. I don't even really know where to begin to summarize the movie, but the bare bones of it all revolves around Bowser Jr. kidnapping Rosalina, a space princess and mother of the Lumas, which causes a series of events that brings Mario and the gang once again on the path to facing Bowser against a big, mean, universe-destroying threat. I'm a massive Mario fan. Since I was a little kid, and even into my adulthood, I still play all the Mario games. I'm in the process of clearing Super Mario Wonder still, and you want to know how much I love playing Mario games? I have one of these motherfuckers. That's how hard I fuck with Mario. I got one of these guys, and I still kind of use it from time to time. And Mario Galaxy is one of my favorite games of all time. I finally started playing Mario Galaxy 2 since I couldn't own it when I was a kid after the Switch re-release, and oh god, it's amazing. I mention this because this is going to be a negative review, and I want to set the tone and say the reason I don't like this movie isn't because I'm not a fan. It's almost because I am a fan. But before I get into all of that, like the first film, the visuals of this movie are pretty on point. It's a pleasing film to look at. It's a very well-lit film. And considering the worlds they explore, I can honestly say it's a visual upgrade. The style is the same, they're just expanding on it, which is a bare minimum, but still an excellent touch. And I am happy to say that they've ditched the annoying needle drops of the first one and let the score do most of the work. Not that the needle drops don't exist, but they're mostly like a couple in the beginning, and they're far less of an issue this time around. And the score is still great, still incorporating old Mario sounds and, music from the games. With that in mind, somehow, by some divine miracle, there's less of a plot here than in the first one. The very basic through line is that Rosalina's kidnapping, but everything falls into place in a way that feels rushed and not thought out. It's clear as day what type of reaction they want from audiences, and it's to clap at references and Easter eggs, and the entire movie is all one big excuse to jump from one Easter egg to the next. I didn't give Deadpool and Wolverine a pass. I'm not giving this a pass just because I like the IP. And, well, visually this is much more grand than the grayness of that movie. It doesn't change the fact that it's all one big dangling set of keys. Hey, remember this guy? Remember this character, the side character from the other movies? They're here. Remember this sound? That's here. And I'm not going to pretend I don't. I play with the dangling keys a little bit. But that is the nature of this film, at the end of the day. And even as a Mario Galaxy movie, it falls spectacularly flat. It has more nods to Mario Odyssey than it does Galaxy. And it always bothered me that they jumped right to Galaxy for the second movie. Where do they go from there? But the Galaxy of it all is mostly pushed to the side, from making Rosalina just a mere damsel in distress to the fact that most of the Galaxy that they jump to is mostly Odyssey themed, or even themed to other games, which in theory isn't a problem, but why go to this length off round 2? And also, if you're excited for Yoshi, I'd curb your enthusiasm a little bit. Donald Glover is surprisingly amazing. He really does nail the the Yoshi of it all. The casting is so random. I know he wanted to be him, but the casting is still so random, but hey, he made it work. But Yoshi is resorted to a cute little background extra. His purpose to the plot and the dynamic between Mario and Luigi is effectively complete the second his intro is done. As is, honestly, the majority of the cast, to be honest. Toad and Luigi in particular feel like fodder. Of the new casting, obviously there is Donald Glover, who, stands out, but of the new cast, the only real, notable one to talk about is Benny Safdie as Bowser Jr., who is actually the MVP of this movie. Once again, a super random casting call, but he fully commits. And it works. He's very good in the movie. He really, he puts everything he has into it. There's no part of me that could have guessed that was Benny Safdie, which isn't inherently the goal at the end of the day, but it's an extra little feature. And the voice he does fit the character very well. But my feelings towards Chris Pratt remains the same, which is that Even without the context that he sounds nothing like the iconic Mario voice, his casting reveals a major flaw in these movies. I recognize the inherent difficulty of portraying Mario's voice like from the game accurately when jumping to a narrative feature, whereas in a video game you can, get away with nothing more than catchphrases, you know what I mean? I get why a movie can't be him the entire going, "Let's go! Yahoo!" They should have casted me as Mario. I'm a big hairy Italian, I could have made it work. But you ever notice how nobody criticizes Charlie Day as Luigi despite being equally as Italian as Chris Pratt? Maybe it's because Charlie Day has a distinct personality that matches the scaredy cat nature of Luigi, which, by the way, is almost entirely ditched here aside from an occasional bit. In no way am I saying Chris Pratt should have been cast. He's not great. But I do think part of the problem with these movies is that Mario as a character is an empty suit dressed in a red hat and overalls. So Pratt doesn't even have an opportunity to even attempt personality. And to show I'm not just being biased because I don't like Chris Pratt in general, I think that sentiment unfortunately also applies to Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach. Anya Taylor-Joy has shown herself to be much more versatile. And while I admit that I am deeply, madly in love with Anya Taylor-Joy, I don't think her casting as Peach is automatically as miscast as Chris Pratt as Mario. But her character is essentially just girl. So like Chris Pratt, Anya Taylor-Joy, who is capable of personality, is locked in a scenario where she can't do anything except be girl. And to bridge the gap between the first film and Mario Galaxy with this complaint of the stunt casting movie stars to essentially add nothing to nothing, this unfortunately also applies to Brie Larson as Rosalina. There's plenty they could have done with Rosalina, and she's just once again an empty suit. I recognize that these characters were never the most fleshed out, but that makes it more infuriating that they're so bland when they're being adapted to a narrative-based medium. Mario in this movie is arcless. His whole thing in here is that he really wants to pipe Peach. Jack Black is still fun as Bowser, but that character is also a mess. I thought they were going somewhere I didn't really like, and then they just stopped going there, which sounds like I should be happy, but I couldn't help but think, why did we attempt that in the first place? I'm purposely avoiding spoilers here, but you'll see when you see it. It's just an unnecessary addition. I understand that the appeal of the Mario games is jumping from world to world and experiencing new foes and characters. In that regard, these movies are successful, although I imagine that's not so much intentional. But once again, if you're going to adapt a film, heavy lifting has to be done. And this movie is blatantly just an excuse to shoehorn references and Easter eggs. Shigeru Miyamoto himself essentially admitted that. But that doesn't mean I have to respect that or even like that. And yeah, I get the tingles hearing the sound effects of the star portal thing that remind me of the games. I go, yay! But I think there's a big reason why both of these films have run into the exact same problem. The Sonic the Hedgehog movies steer pretty far away from the games in terms of structure, and look at the following that's garnered organically. And yes, I know this movie's making $1 billion. I know that. But I surely can't be the only Mario superfan who found this to be nothing more than a sensory overload experience with nothing of value besides brief dopamine kicks. By this point, fans of the film or people who haven't seen it yet but have decided that they, already like it, are thinking or overtly saying that I'm a snob, that I can't have fun, that it's for the fans, and regurgitating the self-defeating earworm that it's not meant to be that deep. Look, my favorite movie of the year so far is called Nirvana the Band, the Show, the Movie, where two idiots accidentally make a time machine out of an RV that runs on a discontinued Canadian juice. I know when a movie is not to be taken a certain level of serious, but I can also tell when that's used as an excuse to care less, not just from its audience, but more importantly, from the filmmakers. Mario as a franchise has never been about the story, I get that. But it was about the adventure, which even this film fails to fully convey. I didn't need this to be deep. What I wanted was something more simple and reasonable, and that's cohesion, which this movie fails to deliver. You can cut an entire story plot with Peach and Toad and just kind of blend it with Mario and Luigi's and Yoshi's, and nothing would have changed. That entire narrative, angle was one of the most glaring instances of, just galaxy hopping to look at new characters. And not to go back to the Sonic movies, but the third Sonic movie is genuinely moving. I'm not saying it belongs in the Criterion Collection, but it got an, at worst, sincere approach to grief. Dude, there's a literal child death in that movie, and a moving send-off to the cartoonish antagonist. That movie cares about its characters, whereas the Mario movies care about them as far as you can clap at their appearance. I think the best adaptation should allow for a non-fan to go in and have a good time, and I don't see how that's possible for an adult. And granted, there's very little non-Mario fans on the planet, but even as a Mario fan wet dream, why the fuck is Fox McCloud here? Like, why throw him in there for any non-cynical reasons? Especially with the way that he's used here. When there's a handful of Mario characters that still haven't introduced, even by that approach, it feels like they're just really, really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Roll. And why did they reveal him in the marketing when he's so clearly meant to be a surprise watching the movie? And if you're hoping that like leads to something else big, like Smash Bros. Related, I would say lower your expectations. Overall, the more I digest this movie, the less I like it. If you think you're gonna love it, you might. But it is worth acknowledging the utter incoherent nature of this movie. And if you're thinking it's not supposed to be that deep, I know that. Movies can be great and silly at the same time. If you're thinking it's meant for kids, so are these movies, and they still find new meaning for me even as an adult. And if you're thinking it's for the fans, well, I am a fan. I've been a Mario fan for as long as I remember, which is why I'm so disappointed that this is what we have to deal with. The Super Mario Galaxy movie is pretty to look at, but this was a miss on a level that surpasses the serviceable mess of the first. I get a nice little boost of happy, nostalgic energy seeing the game reference, especially in the rare moments when the game's mechanics are directly utilized. But I think a hint of narrative cohesion and engaging characters that rely less on our recognition of their designs and more on their personalities is not too much to ask for. But if all we get is Easter egg farming, I think we need to hit the reset button on this franchise before it's too late. And I'm giving the Super Mario Galaxy movie 3 Donnie Glover Yoshis out of 10. That got me more riled up than I thought it would. I think I'm not popular at all because I don't want to deal with the heat. Alright, that's it. That's what we got. Yeah, you're gonna watch it anyway. I don't give a fuck. Let's grab and share. Bye.